let's say Jim is the worst call that we can imagine. The worst call that we can imagine is the one that's, hey, I don't want to tell you my last name. What's your rate? Give me an LE. I've got 9 companies I could work with. I don't even need financing. So let's just paint that picture of that Jim, okay? Because that's ultimately what we kind of internally fear. And we don't want to get caught on the phone with that guy. So the very first thing is to relate and bond with Jim. And relate and bond with Jim is not about telling him how cool you are or how awesome NAF is. You can do that, but do it covertly within your conversation. So how do you do that? So if he calls, if he comes off with an aggressive tone, just act as if you don't care. Does that make sense? Where if he comes off an aggressive tone, there's a reason behind it, and it's because he's defending himself. So if you pick up on that sign, you could say you can actually craft your message in that way. Say, hey, you know what, Jim? Before I even go any further, I don't want to waste your time. Let me just make sure this is even worth it. Completely flip the script on him, right? Whereas he's defending himself that you are going to take advantage. It's because it's his internal fears. It's his insecurity. Make sense? So if you can adapt to that, then you can actually control it and maneuver it to go the different way, because that objection is always going to happen at the very beginning. It shouldn't happen towards the end or you did it wrong. Right? Because the only time he's going to give you objection at the end is if the body of the conversation was not crafted correctly. So, in other words, I didn't give him enough reason to be enticed to give me these documentation. Does that make sense? You guys have any questions on that?
You want to run an example on that or anything?
Well, yeah, okay, if you, like you said, you flip the script by telling them, well, let me make sure that I don't want to waste your time, like you said.
Yeah.
Now, what would be your next question would you kind of tell them, like, oh, I just need to ask you a couple quick questions so we can get into.
Why don't you act like the customer on this thing?
I'm sorry?
Act like the customer on this exact part.
Okay, so just to understand what you guys are doing, you're
Right.
doing the 1003. Is that right?
Well,
Okay.
we're working up for the PAL, because we are now junior loan officers.
Okay.
So we actually get the PAL, not just the
Yeah,
steps.
so they just want the steps in so they can do the PAL and see,
Run DD.
and see where they're at so we can
Yeah.
get a target basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So-
And once they get the contract, then we pass them over to a senior.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. So you're the CSR, you transfer the call to me, let's say your name's Jim, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, hey Jim, this is Daniel with New American Funding. I appreciate you holding. What's going to happen is I'm just going to make sure I can even move forward with this call. The reason why you're being transferred to me is because I'm going to assist you by saving a bunch of time. I'm going to make sure that we can even put together the figures that fits your budget, and if we can, I'll actually send it over to your email that we have on file, but if we can't, again, I'll save you a ton of time and point you in the right direction. So,
Okay, great. I don't have a lot of time. I don't want to give you a lot of information about me. I have already multiple companies I've gotten pre-approved from, and I just want to know what your rates are, and I want to go from there. But-
awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome, perfect. Okay, cool. Then this will be super easy then. So the phone conversation, pretty much what we do here is just make sure that you can even have the ability to be pre-approved. So it sounds like you've already been pre-approved by how many companies? 9?
Yeah, about
Okay.
8, 9. yeah.
Okay. And they've each pulled your credit, huh?
Yes.
Okay. How long ago was your most recent pre-approval?
It was actually just this morning they
Okay.
pulled the credit.
Got it. Okay, there hadn't been a reason to do 9. What was the reason to do 7, 8, and then 9? What did you not find with those other companies that now you're talking to me is number 10?
Well, actually, I just want to make sure that I'm casting the widest net. I want to make sure that I'm getting the best deal. I know there's a lot of companies out there and some want to take advantage of me, and I don't want that to happen.
Makes perfect sense. So good thing you called us. The reason why a lot of homeowners in your county even call us is so they can do the exact same thing. You see, what makes me different from all those other 9 companies is I'm a direct conduit, meaning I'm a direct channel and link to the source. So all those other 9 companies are essentially going to the same entities. So this is like Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, FHA. You might have heard of these names, Jim. Or maybe even VA if you're approved for VA. But we'll talk about that if necessary, Jim. I guess where I'm getting at is if you went through 9 different companies to protect yourself, you've done the right thing. Fortunately, you can now get a chance to speak with me. What you're going to learn in this conversation is why we're the preferred lender of choice after speaking with high retail banks and net banks. But again, I'll cover that if necessary. So before I begin, let me just make sure I can even move forward with the call, okay? What was the amount that you were pre-approved for?
$350.
Okay, and was it a pre-qualification or pre-approval?
No, it was actually a pre-qualification, my last one,
Got it.
but I have been pre-approved.
Okay, so obviously there's a difference, otherwise they'd have the same name. And so a pre-approval holds a little bit more weight, and that's all we do here. And the reason for that is because when you go out and shop with a realtor, you want to be able to protect your time. You want to be able to not only protect your time, but protect any earnest money deposit that you put down on the house. And so in order to help you save time, Jim, what I'm going to make sure is that the pre-approval is legit. So the pre-approval you got from the other lender, they got all your documents already? Like income documents, W-2s?
One of the companies did. Oh well, a couple, actually about 2 or 3 of them.
Okay, how long ago did you give them that?
Probably about a week ago.
Okay, any changes with income or employment?
No.
All right. So again, this is going to be super quick. So that stack of documentation is actually just going to allow me to give you a better certificate. Here, let me explain. And then I got them. Does that make sense? So everything that you came back at me with, I said, yeah, no worries. That's exactly the reason. Or, oh, this is perfect. And I planted the seeds in the conversation of both branding and the reason why that we're on the same page. We're on the same level. But you're more than welcome to hit me back with more objections.
No, that's good. That's a good
pretty-
section.
yeah.
Like, we can do it in like those parts, you know. but
Yeah,
Yeah,
for
I
sure.
think that
That was good.
that's good, right? Yeah, like
He didn't stumble at all. Just like,
You just
oh,
felt it,
okay,
right?
like yeah.
Right. So because what's happening is the tonality. So the tonality is constantly moving. Does that make sense? So, and it's always reassuring because I knew where your mindset was, and your mindset right away was I don't have time. And I've already went through a lot of different companies. So I'm peeking at your emotion more than I am about the process. Does that make sense? But also I've also leveraged the fact that you packaged all the documents a week ago. This is easy. Right? So now all I got to do is get that documentation, because what's cool about your part of the cycle is that you're just getting the baton and handing it off. So now it's just a game. Like how can I get crafty enough to get these people to send me their docs, and I'm gonna hand it off, I'm gonna go get more. Because it's up to how many of those you get before you advance on, right? How many do they have to get?
30.
yeah, 30.
Yeah, I think that if you guys do really good, you should be able to get this done within a month.
Yeah.
You know, at least.
Well,
within a month.
for them, they have to factor in more, so if they qualify too. So that's
Oh, okay.
that's the new thing that they're adding on. So eventually, 30, and then I think like 4 or 5 funded.
Okay.
So you know they're going from high amounts to quality,
Okay.
right? Oh, or actually a little bit of both now,
Okay.
right? So that's their main thing. But yeah, their biggest goal is to get to loan officers as soon as they can.
Got it.
Yeah.
So a few things that you want to pick up on is because you need 30 in order to advance, make it into a game, right? Make it fun. Don't look at it as a challenge. Don't look at it as some daunting feat, right? Like, oh man, it took this guy 3 months to get 30. It must take me 3 months to get 32. No, look at it as a challenge. Like, dude, I'm gonna get this done in the first month. And regardless if there's any roadblocks of pre-approvals, what you're gonna learn in your conversation are different questions you can ask that will identify whether or not the likelihood of getting that person pre-approved. Does that make sense? So you're probably going to get a lot of window shoppers. You're probably going to get a lot of people that were declined because they have credit issues. And so all you have to do is have, kind of like your words, is just get a safety net. A safety net is basically like how you pivot the conversation so that you have an answer for it, right? And so if you would have told me like, hey, I've been pre-approved by 9 companies, none of them are giving me the answer that I want, I would have examined it a little bit further. I would say, okay, well, what were they missing? They couldn't get me approved because my credit score. Got it. Okay, well, here's a neat thing, Jim. Right? Watch, check this out, Jim. Right? Here's the neat thing, Jim, is what we do here is we actually specialize in that. We have this program that helps you rehabilitate your FICO score just in time so you can start shopping as well as position yourself more favorably. You get the absolute best terms. You see, what they can't do doesn't mean that I can't do it, and this is why most homeowners in Orange County prefer us, is because we don't have a lot of the red tape or the restrictions that brokers and high net retail banks have. The reason for that, Jim, is because we don't sell off our loan, we actually become your lender for life, but I'll go over that if necessary. Here, watch, and then pivot right back to the conversation.
Question. So they are starting off as LO, so I'm sure they have a question on what should they focus on into becoming an LO.
Yeah.
Because they technically kind of are. Once a contract comes off, they'll hand it
Sure.
off. But as far as organization, what should they think about? all those sorts of things. Basically, dumbing it down to back to the basics when like basically when you started, but now taking that knowledge that you have and applying it to for them to kind of go.
Yeah, so I would say probably the main challenge that I had was how do I start the conversation, right? Like, what's the very first question? Like, where do I go from the intro? And so I could have went various ways. I could have asked them about their primary residence. I could have asked them about their goals. But I found out that by giving them control of the conversation, they changed the course of it. So they talked about pricing. They talked about all the reasons why not to, right? So if you use the script that I sent you guys, and you'll notice that it kind of ends after you take control of the conversation, the first thing that you want to get into is the meat of it, their desire. The reason why you'll need that is because if they give you resistance during the conversation, you can always reach back to those emotional pinpoints, right? So one of the very first questions I would ask is say, okay, are you selling a home, or is this going to be your first time buying, right? And the reason why that question would be most important is because you then understand their experience with the process, right? You also understand that if they're a first-time home buyer, this now positions you as a consultant, as an educator. You now have more leverage. But don't be intimidated if this person says, "Oh, I'm going to be selling my home." Okay, and then it just kind of courses in two different directions, right? So if he says, I'm going to be selling my home and I'm thinking about buying a retirement home. Got it. Okay, is your house listed for sale now? No, it's not. Okay, well, if you did find a property that you'd want to retire in, where would it be? Right? Now I'm talking about him. So I think me and my wife want to go to Texas. Okay, cool. You got a lot of family out there, or it's just going to be you two? Right? It was, oh, no, it's going to be me, us, and then my 3 grandkids. Now I've got more emotional pinpoints, right? Okay, got it. So I'm sure the school district is going to be important, the safety in the neighborhood, right? Yes. Okay, cool. Have you already done research in Texas to find the safest neighborhood and the good school districts? Does that make sense? This is far off just the traditional 1003, but why? Why am I talking about that at the very beginning? Is because if I get resistance from Jim here in the phone conversation, I would then use some of those emotional pinpoints to gear him back to me, right? So if Jim said, hey, Daniel, again, me and my wife are just thinking we're probably not going to retire for another 3 years, or we're probably not going to buy this house for another 3 years, but we just say, okay, no worries, but you might buy it soon, right? We kind of pivot back. It's like, yeah, we might buy it soon. It just depends if it fits in our budget. Okay, no worries. That's the exact reason why we're having this conversation, is to make sure I should even move forward first. So let me ask you a few things. When you pick the house in Texas that has the safest neighborhood and the strongest school system for your grandkids, what is the price range that you're looking at, and do you even have a realtor showing you these properties? Say, no, it's just thought right now, but I think we're probably looking at about $350. Just him telling me that, I know he's kind of serious. So otherwise, why are you researching it?
Yeah.
Make sense? But if he would have went in a different direction and said, nah, I have no idea how much the house costs, I have no idea, then I would kind of, treat it as such. And say, okay, well, what sprouted the reason to call me today, Jim? How can I help you exactly today? And then he'll tell you. He'll say, well, I just want to see how much the payment would be. Okay, perfect. So what do you do for work? Right? And you can move right back into the application. So I think it's really just understanding that each phone conversation is going to go only in so many different directions. And the more experience you get with these directions, the more you can pivot it back to bringing them to like that scale where the documents come in.
So what are some things, since we're talking about controlling the call, what are some common things that maybe some new loan officers might do by giving back the control to, common things that they may do to have that borrower dry all of a sudden, and they didn't notice they were doing that, right?
Yeah. So what do you mean? Like,
for example, like if, when they ask a certain question, like in a certain way, it causes the borrower to feel like they're in control, and then they start driving.
Got it.
Are there any key points that you catch a lot of loan officers asking maybe the wrong questions or asking it in the wrong way?
Yeah.
That puts them in that position.
Absolutely. It's the question of how can I help you? Right. It's just a dead end question, because you give up full control by doing that. So the reason why my script has no question like that, like what's your goal today? How can I help you today? Is because I'm assuming that they're on a course, and I'm gonna follow this course whether they want to or not. So like my guys, I've trained them efficiently to never say how can I help you, because we already know the only way we can really help them Does that make sense? So in your eyes, the only way that you can help them is to get them to the baton handoff, right? Get them pre-qualified so you can hand the baton off to an LO. That's how I can help them. It's nothing else. I'm not going to be able to help you if you ditch me. I'm not going to be able to help you if you go ghost. Does that make sense? So if you do though, because sometimes it's one of the hardest things to remove out of your vocabulary, because for years or months now you've kind of been trained to be like, hey, how can I help you today? So sometimes it's going to sneak out. Don't be scared. Don't worry. If it does and they do respond, always agree, right? Never think of it as a challenge, because when you go through the process and sometimes you'll blank out a few times, it'll be human instinct to kind of get emotional with it, and you'll start to get defensive and you'll start judging the lead. So that's one thing that you kind of want to stay away from. But assuming that you guys don't do that and you guys do say, hey, how can I help you, Jim? You know what, I'm and you do ask that and he gives you a specific, anyone want to pick one? I'll show you how to drive it.
Lacan.
What do you want them to pick?
I gotta talk to my wife.
Perfect. Okay, cool. Let me go ahead and put some information together so you can actually give it to your wife. So when you guys talk about it, you have information worth your time. Make sense?
Yes.
Because technically that question would happen later. It wouldn't necessarily, but that's a good objection though, right? Like, I want to talk to your wife. Yeah, no worries. You should. So all we're going to do here, Jim, is I'm just going to put the information together so you can show it to her in writing. Make sense? And now he's a little bit more enticed, like, okay, cool, right? And then if he says, well, I don't want to go any further, I just want to talk to my wife. No worries. What time is she available? Pinpoint a time where you can talk to both of them. And if he's still resisting and saying, no, you know what, I'm just going to talk to her for, whenever I find her. Okay, absolutely, I completely understand. It took me a couple months just to get licensed, and you could share your history. Like, there's a lot of confusing vocabulary, and since this is your first time buying a home, Jim, I want to make sure you have at least the right information to talk about. Otherwise, you're just going to be talking hypothesis or theory, right? So before the market prices go up any higher, let me at least put something in front of you guys that is actually answering your questions. Here, watch, I'll show you. And then guide them right back into the conversation, right? So, but teeter off that. So if he says, I want to talk to my wife, say, yeah, absolutely, no worries. So let me put some information, blah, 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 right? Here, watch, I'll show you. When you talk to your wife, what are the common questions that come up? And so he's going to kind of live through his wife, but actually tell you what his worries are. Does that make sense?
Like that.
That's a way to kind of disarm them. And so it's like, yeah, my wife's just kind of worried about, and it's really him.
Yeah.
So yeah, my wife's just worried about the fees and the costs. Oh yeah, good for her. She should be. Because there are a lot of high retail banks and brokers out there. Fortunately, you're connected with me. I'm not that. Make sense? And then guide it back. And say, so first off, with regards to going through the approval process, have you already been pre-approved or pre-qualified elsewhere? And if they say, yeah, I've already been, I've already talked to another lender, got it. What did they do? What did they give you? And then they might say, oh, well, they gave me this. Okay, then there's obviously a reason why you called us. What did they not give? What was missing from that? Now you're narrowing it down, right? But I always sprinkle some of the information that I'll need in the application, but it always is the conversation, right? And say, okay, cool, so it sounds like you talked to those other companies, got it. They looked at your income. What do you do for work? So I'm filling out the application, right? How long you been at your current home right now? How much you pay for rent roughly? Got it. Okay, and what's your budget roughly for a total mortgage payment? Because now you got taxes, insurance to think about, HOA. Have you guys pinpointed a number? About $3,500. These are all notes that I need on my 1003, but it sounds like a conversation. Make sense? So, and I know it's going to be kind of hard to do that because I've done a 1003 a million times, and you guys may not have. And so coming into the role where you're actually looking at all these boxes, it seems intimidating, right? But you're going to learn after doing it so many different times that you only need so much information. You don't need to fill in every single box, right? You may feel that it's a requirement to ask the name of the employer or the address of the employer, but you can get that information later on. All you need to do is figure out if they got the main components, and the main components to make a loan is income, credit, right? So if we know that he has income, I say, okay, what do you do for work? I'm an engineer. Got it. How long have you been with your employer? About 5 years. Okay, cool. I got a 2-year history right there. Make sense? So, but if you said, oh, I've been there for about 12 months. Okay, what'd you do before? right? I'm just trying to get 2 years of history, but I'm not going like, who do you work with? What's the employer? What's their phone number? Because now they feel like they're committing. Make sense? Like, whoa, you're gonna call my employer?
Makes it official.
Yeah, it's making it official, right? But we haven't yet extracted enough leverage to make them want to give us that information yet. But all you're doing is you're methodically opening them up little by little, right? So at the same time, you're keeping your ears open for pieces of content that they share with you that you can hold as leverage, right? So if they give you any friction and say, you know what, before I go any further, I just want to make sure that you have the lowest rate. Absolutely, we sure do. Here, watch, I'll show you. Make sense? Don't feel like you have to answer it and give price. Well, our lowest rate is because you are coming from a customer service role, you will naturally feel like it's your job to serve, to answer, right? But you have to protect that. Yeah.
I think I got a good one, unless you guys have questions. Raise your hand if you have a
Well,
question.
real quick, especially with the making it like, because sometimes they don't want to make a commitment.
Yeah.
You know, they're, why do I got to send you my documents if I'm not sure if I'm going to go with you?
Yep.
You know, that's like a big one. So it's like, I mean, I've found ways around it, but like with your experience, what's the best way to just plow through that and get, you know what I mean, kind of.
Agree with them.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, agree with them. So technically you don't, Jim. The only reason why you would send me your documents is if you want something worth your time. Make sense? So I've agreed and I've turned it back on. See, the only reason why you would send me your documents, Jim, is if you want information worth your time. You see, the only thing I can put in front of you, Jim, is what you actually qualify for. I operate a little bit differently than these other companies that are quick to get you a pre-qualification because they're hoping you call them back. I only want you to call me back when you're ready.
Dang, that's real.
That's
Yes.
some ninja shit right there,
That's
boy.
some-
That's some real. That made him question himself. Like, dude, I want to know.
Does that make, but it's hard to think of that when you're in the heat of the moment, right? Because when you get hit with that objection, you're like, oh fuck. So that's what I mean, is just have fun with it. But just be there. Like, I can do it and it sounds smooth because I've done it a million times.
Right.
It's just practice, it's repetition, and that's why I'm saying, like, immerse yourself. Don't fear the small shit, right? If anything, look forward to failing fast and failing often. Because every time you hit those curves, that's actually a learning point for you, right? It's like your scrapes and bruises when you're riding a bike. Like, oh damn, I can't ride it that way because I'll fuck up my knee, right? Ooh, that hurt. I'm not gonna do that again, right? But you analyze it, but then you won't know until you actually go through the process. Make sense? So be open, be willing to make a fool of yourself, almost. But also invite the challenge of them, hitting you back with objections.
And I think for, part of what Daniel was saying too is that when you talk to these customers and they're giving you that no, they don't want to move forward, it's okay to find out why. Like, you want to ask them in a certain way that's of course not threatening, but you really want to get to the core and the issue of why they're being that certain way. So since you guys are learning still, you don't know exactly what to say, but if you can ask yourself, well, why are they doing this, or why they feel like this, why don't they want to move forward, you can technically ask them in that way. I mean, if they're not moving forward, you can ask them, well, what has you not moving forward, so that you can really kind of mind wrestle with them, and not being aggressively, but in a way to get to the core of something and to make that conversation move forward.
Yeah, I think one of the common objections that you guys might get at the end is, okay, let me think about it, right? I think that's probably going to be one of the most common questions. And so I think that this game, whether you're a junior LO or senior LO or even a refi or a purchase LO, it's chess. So you're thinking always 3 steps ahead, right? So you're kind of being proactive to where if I know I'm going to get that objection of let me think about it, then I'm going to kind of capture as much leverage as I can up front. So I'll ask questions like, so how long have you been researching this process of buying a house? Oh, I've been looking into it for about a good 4 or 5 months, right? And so if he hits me with that objection, so let me think about it and say, yeah, absolutely. Sounds like you've been thinking about it for like 5-6 months now, right? When are you actually going to be serious about, acquiring a home? And if you do acquire a home, what is the primary reason why you even want to buy a home, right? So unless you have the right information in front of you, I understand why you've been thinking about it for 6 months, because you don't have anything to actually reference. So if you want to actually put some answers to the conversations that you're having, I can help you do that. Make sense?
How about
going back to kind of that aggressive guy that comes on and just wants the rate, like, kind of what's your mindset to, because you almost have like a tendency to be defensive back to them.
Right.
But you don't want to do that, right? You want to be like, yes, I can definitely get you the rate.
You want to match them. So you're going to notice that they're speaking short sentences because they're on guard is the reason why they're acting that way. It's not you, right? That's why we become defensive, is because we think it's us. So think of it as kind of a music genre, right? So if they come in aggressive, that's a specific music genre. There's only so many different ways you can dance with that beat, right? It's only so many ways that you can sing to that rhythm. Make sense? So I have to match that rhythm. So if he comes in and be like, Daniel, before I even give you anything, right? So he's talking like this, like real fast, very short sentences. I'm all, yeah, absolutely. What I'm going to do is, so I'm mimicking him. And so I'm very short with the sentences, and I'm hearing why he's on guard. So, you know what, I got perfect credit, I got perfect income, blah, blah, blah. Okay, no worries. This is going to be super easy. No, the hell, you just made my job much easier, right? So how many times have you already been pre-approved? Right, so I'm kind of mirroring him. But if he comes back in, he's more methodical, a little bit more logical, like an executive. Hey, Daniel, you know, I don't have any time for this right now. I'm just giving a call to see what your rate is. Oh, yeah, absolutely. So what I'm going to do is just ask you a few questions, make sure I can even move forward. Does that make sense? And so when you mimic him and you get compliance, then you change your tone. And then when he matches your tone, you got him. Make sense?
Yeah.
Something, it's weird. It's psychological. They'll mirror you if they're bonded. It's kind of like if body language. Like I used to saw a lot of people in person, and I studied this art where if you can get them to mimic you, first you mimic them, right? Like however they're sitting. Like if you're sitting like this, I'd be like this, right? And then I'd get them like drawn into my message, and then I change my body position, or I take a drink. And if they do the same, then I got them. Make sense? Because they're engaged with me. So if we can, if I guess to answer your question, what's the mindset? The mindset is, this is a game. I'm gonna get you, right? Like I love that shit. I love the challenge, right? Yeah.
So just opposite of that, because I know they go run through this too, is Mr. Silent, Mr. Nothing.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Is that the one word
answers,
right?
I want a house.
Dry.
Yeah.
Oh, very dry.
Like they don't
Okay.
know how to open it up or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
That's probably the most uncomfortable for you.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So with that, that's actually pretty cool, because number one is that you get to really drive the conversation if they're not, trying to drive it for you. And so I would say, just like every other one, you want to pick up the emotional pieces first, right? What's driving them to buy a home? Or what drove them to be inquired with you? Because as the CSRs, are they outbounding and then connecting to you, or are they answering inbounds and connecting to you?
Both.
Both, but it's mostly outbound.
Okay, but they'll tell you if it's inbound, outbound, right?
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
Sometimes they don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they're used to dealing with a lot of outbound, so that's the harder ones.
Okay, so just ask the CSR real quick, okay? So before you take it as, hey, was it inbound or outbound? Because that is going to tell you how to drive that ship, right?
We can't even ask anymore because now they're
Because
it's
they're
a
on
warm
the line
transfer
now.
Yeah, the
Oh, okay.
CSRs now they have the person on the line, so you are adding in. So now you have to answer like, "Hello, this is Tanya. Where can I find you?"
Oh, okay, then just kind of move it in your script then.
Yeah. Look at the lead source.
Yeah, or just be like, so
Yeah.
if
Wait,
Alex, if Alex
Until the transfer.
sent me the lead, and I'd be like, hey, thanks for holding. Good. Hey, my name is Daniel. Did Alex call you? You called him. Right? Very simple question. No, I called you guys. Oh, Alex called me. Oh, okay, cool.
Like 20 times.
Yeah. Oh, Alex called me. Okay, cool. The reason why we're calling you, right? Or okay, cool. Well, the reason why he's transferring you to me. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So you're just now pivoting, and the reason why you want to know where they're coming from is because they're either going to be on defense or they're going to be compliant to want to learn more. Does that make sense? So that's a different rhythm. So let's say a lot of them are outbound. Say, okay, cool. The reason why we're calling you is because you at some point express interest in acquiring property. And so what we're doing is a huge campaign in Orange County. And we just want to give you this quick courtesy update to make sure you're positioned before the summertime. Right? And now you have full control of the conversation, technically. So if he says, yeah, but you know what, I already told Alex that I'm just not ready to buy a home. Yeah, no worries. You buy a home whenever you want to. All we're going to do is position you with enough information so you can make the right choice. All right? and then move into the application. Say, you know what, Alex didn't mention, is this your first home or are you guys selling a house? Oh, I'm going to sell a home. Okay, got it. And if you did sell your home, where would you guys move to? Right? Because again, they're saying that, well, I don't know. Let's just say if, well, if you did, I'm dropping that word. Because now it's not pushing them to commit. Right? Say, oh, well, if we sold our home, we would buy in Burbank. Got it. And if you bought in Burbank, does that make sense? It's if, leading in with if. And then when you get control, because they're being more compliant, then you could start talking about as if it's already happening. Right? So like you start planting seeds a little bit different for the documentation. So yeah, so this is how it works, Jim, is the only way I can even move forward is if I can actually provide you what's called a pre-approval. I can't necessarily give you pre-qualification because anyone can give you pre-qualification just based off a conversation. We operate a little bit different, and the reason why we called you is because we need to give you this courtesy update that actually is a little bit more legitimate than a pre-qualification. Here's the reason. When you get a pre-qualification, it's not even taken seriously by homeowner or realtors or home sellers or opening into escrow because they know that those figures haven't actually been reviewed, hasn't been underwritten. So since I work for Direct Conduit, meaning we are actually the lender, we're not a broker or a high retail cost bank, we do things a little bit different where the only thing I can put in front of you is actually worth your time. So if you were to sell your house and move to Burbank, at least you know exactly what you're getting yourself into. Pretty neat, right? Here, check this out, and then go right back into the conversation.
Now that is sales remastered.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I
That's-
think this is good too. So you know what can they do? I mean, they're hearing all this stuff from you. They watch your videos and stuff, and they learn. But what can they practice when that TV screen's off? Like, what would you recommend them? Because every day we say you are what you practice.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what material can they find, or what would you recommend them start to practice, basically?
So that's a good question, dude.
I know one of your things was like wordplay.
Yeah.
And their thing is like, well, how do you learn wordplay? Because
Yeah.
a lot of times when you're speaking, I notice that you'll emphasize on certain words to
Yeah.
make sure that they feel it, right?
It's so much a collection of books and audiobooks that I've studied because I really enjoyed the idea of persuasion through influence and hacking, right? Like I always looked at it as kind of like a secret code on a video game. Like I know this code,
It's the game.
and you would have fun with it. And so I think you guys have already told you guys like NLP, neuro linguistic programming. If I don't really read, I do a lot of audiobooks and I do a lot of YouTube content, and I absorb it. And so I'll look at like sales NLP tactics, and what it does is it doesn't necessarily talk about your line of work, but it just talks to you about different ways to communicate with people. There's a book called Persuasion, and maybe I'll put together a list of a couple of these books. There's another one. There's one that I'm actually listening to right now. It's called Influence from Dan Locke, and yeah, so it's called Influence, and what he tells you is just ways to capture attention, because that's all we want is their attention. Because without their attention, we can't drive them to the end goal. Does that make sense? So just because it might be a book on marketing doesn't mean it's not applicable to you because you're a loan officer. I'm in sales. Understand that any sales cycle starts with marketing, selling, closing, and then so on, right? So look at any books that are reputable. You want to do a little bit of research, and you're going to find a couple people that will give really good content, and you just apply the methods to this game. And I'll think of some more, but yeah, it's just been years of practice collection.
I have one more question unless you guys have any questions. Okay. So, all the stuff that you're getting, all this practice, all these books, well, it takes the ability to take action, to want to learn these things and, get there, right?
Yeah.
Because a lot of times people don't move, they don't know where to
Yeah.
go. And, I always say you need to take action, you need to be a hunter, seeker of information.
Yeah.
Is there a certain fuel that causes you to move that way, to go find that information on your own, or is there like a pivotal moment in your life that caused it?
Yeah, definitely. So I would say is because I don't have a plan B. Like I don't have a degree to rely on. No one's gonna pay my mortgage, right? No one's gonna feed my kids. No one's gonna. It's my why.
Drive.
it's my drive, right? So it's not necessarily me, although I do like the luxury of having the income and the fancy stuff. But really the underlying reason is because I'm actually trying to give my family the foundation that I didn't have. Does that make sense?
Right.
So that's the bigger picture. And so because I wanted it so bad, I understood that kind of like the phases, it's like milestones. In order to get here, I need to figure out this, and this. So I looked at it as a game to advance, like I'm getting to the big boss, right? So in order to get to the big boss though, I need to have patience. I need to turn my perspective of it from it being a grind and resistance and rejection to kind of like sparring, right? Like, so if you think of the idea of sparring, you're just kind of like maneuvering, but at some point you get really good, right? And now they can't even touch you, right? And you become like the Kung Fu master or whatever. Yeah, like it just because you're already expecting it. So I knew that the upside of me learning those ways and those moves and going through the rigorous training would position me to where I didn't need to go through the grind anymore. Because I saw people who were killing it and it was like clockwork to them. So my idea was to get there. How do I get there? And how they told me to get there was that you just mirror the actions and the lifestyle habits of the people who are already there. And so the lifestyle habits of people already there spend a lot of time investing into their craft. They study their job, right? Where some of us are kind of like dipping our toes into it. And be like, all right, well, if I get a sale, I get a sale. No, that's not going to lead you anywhere. That doesn't feed my why. That type of attitude is not going to get me to where I want to go. But not everybody wants to go to the top, right? Some people just want to make a good living. So be it. That's cool. Just know what you want, right? But you can't get mad if you don't back up your wants with the right actions. So if you want it, prove it. No one's stopping you. You got a plethora of resources around you, right? So I would say that if anything you guys want to incorporate, in my opinion, a morning ritual, because this is a grind. This is an emotional sport, and you need time in the morning. And some of you inside your head probably thought, but I'm not a morning person, D. Fuck that. Make time in the morning. Like it's like that. You know what I mean? Like your biggest roadblock is going to be yourself at times. You know, and you'll be like, but D, man, I go to sleep late or whatever. Whatever that excuse is, that's the only reason why you're not going to be able to advance. And until you understand that, accept that, you're going to remain where you are, right? So I have this thing that I've been dropping a lot on the content is like you can either be a thermostat or a thermometer, right? A thermostat makes its climate. It makes the circumstance. Whereas a thermometer is just reacting, right? Like, oh, it's going to be a bad day in the market. That's a thermometer, right? A thermostat is more like, I don't care I never look at rate sheets. I hear my LOs talk about rate sheets, I fucking hate it. I'm like, so what, right? Like, we don't sell rates, we sell solutions and answers. Does that make sense? So if you kind of just learn how to change your perspective, learn how to adopt a morning ritual, and make sure that morning ritual has nothing to do with work, meaning your pipeline. But it could be about learning about your work, learning how to improve yourself, learning how to improve your marketing, learning how to improve your conversational and communication skills, right? Because if you focus on early time in achieving that, I think when you come in, you're primed. Whereas if you hit snooze and you're in the office 30 minutes to an hour later, you're not primed.